Evolution. This is an introduction. You do not have notes on this, but please make sure that you know this information. Evolution is simply change over time. Charles Darwin is the scientist that we associate with evolution and consider the father of evolution. I would say that he is the main proponent of it and that he was influential in our understanding of it. He was born in England on February 12, 1809, and he came from a very wealthy family. He went to school to become a doctor, and then later went on to seminary school to become a theologist or a pastor or a clergyman. He joined the crew of the HMS Beagle in 1831 and went off and sailed the world. This is Charles Darwin. The HMS Beagle was only 90 feet long, but it was a boat that was meant for exploration and for discovery. They went all across the globe, from Australia to the Horn of Africa, across South America, the Galapagos Islands. They went a lot of places. On the voyage, Darwin noticed a few important things. He noticed that plants and animals that seemed remarkably well suited to whatever environment they were in that environment. And he took detailed notes over what he saw, and he began formulating his theories. On the Galapagos Islands, he noticed that the animals that he found there were so different from the ones that he found in Ecuador, that were on the mainland, and he visited both. Primarily, his finches and tortoises are the ones that we accredit the most with his discoveries. The finches were different because the food sources were different on the islands than they were on the mainland. So the birds had to adapt or change with the environment that they were in to become well suited for it. After the voyage, he wrote his book. He went home to his wife, Emma, and they started to write what was called the Big Book, or The Origin of Species. And he published it in 1859. Evolution is simply the change over time that is changing a population over time. These are not individuals that are changing over time, but it is populations. For example, Mario has evolved since 1981 to 2008 to his current form, and we have accepted that from the changes that we have seen from the developers of his games. So populations change over time. So the theory is that is a hypothesis that is repeatedly tested over time. There's a testable explanation of phenomena that have occurred in the natural world, and we have data and we have evidence. There are two types of selection: natural selection. Organisms with favorable variations for particular environments survive, reproduce, and pass on those traits. So this is something that nature controls, also known as survival of the fittest. It just means that they are the best adapted for the current environment that they are within. It also explains how populations will change over time. So, birds. The peppered moth and the black moth. In England, after the Industrial Revolution, the trees became covered in black soot, and the white moths were no longer able to blend in, so they were the ones that were chosen to be eaten. Whereas previously, on the lighter colored bark of the trees, the peppered moths were the ones that were not eaten, and the black ones were, because they were able to be seen by the birds. Giraffes, because the food source was taller up, the ones that had the taller necks were able to get to the food and therefore pass on their genetics. Darwin's finches came from a seed-eating bird and had to adapt to eat other things like grubs and leaves and insects and other fruits, so they had to change over time. Artificial selection, or selective breeding, is where humans are going to take part in this, and they are going to do this with both plants and animals. Farmers have been doing this for centuries. They select for very specific traits, like milk production or color, or even, the leaves or the suppression of the flowers to create these different vegetables. So artificial selection is by humans. Corn is another example of it, as well as dog breeds, where humans have had a chance to manipulate the genetics and create the things that we want to see within these animals or plants. All right.